Good morning and welcome to our social media webinars workshop, learning how to be a social butterfly. Hopefully, that got a lot of people excited and energized this morning for the incredible information that we're going to take in from Guru herself, as someone who is an influencer in her own right, has a thousands and following on social media. So I like to think that she's an expert on this subject. So welcome everyone to joining us. And I hope you enjoyed that song chosen by Jill, who thought it would be an awesome idea to just wake up everyone and get us excited with that piece. My name's Alexis, and I work as a community technology and database coordinator. So I worked with a lot of the people who will be in attendance and are in attendance on technology and getting websites and database and in other, I've worked with them in other ways as well. But one of the things that we've always talked about is, how to bring their story and their work to the masses and really grow their impact and get people involved. And one of those ways is to really make the most of your social media and the tools and how to do that in effective ways. Before we get started, I'm gonna share my screen again, and we're just gonna go over some housekeeping rules. So we're not really rules, but guidelines here. So this is a webinar setting. So this will be unlike typical meetings where you're able to turn on your video and unmute. Everyone will be muted and there will be no video during the presentation. If you're watching the presentation and have any questions or want to make any comments, feel free to use either the Q&A box here, as you see at the bottom of your panel, or the chat box. And we will make sure that we definitely address those when questions in the Q&A section comes around, and acknowledge all of the comments as well. And then if you have any more questions or need additional resources, you can always feel free to visit our website and or reach out to staff to ask those questions or voice those concerns. We always welcome it. But then a bonus at the end is that we will shift everyone to being panelists so that you can unmute and talk and show your video so that we can have open dialogue and open discussion, but we'll just save that for a little later in the Q&A. But for right now, during the presentation, we'll have everyone muted and no video. Without further ado, I just want to say thank you again for your attendance and turn it over to Alex Eng.
Hello. All right. Okay, yeah, I see the slide. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Freshwater Future social media training. I'm honored to be here to kind of talk about some of the things, just because I myself once hated social media. So that's definitely a thing. And I wanted to talk about some of the things I learned professionally and personally about social media and how to navigate it. Because trust me, there's a little bit of a learning curve. It's not just like if you were born at a certain age, you inherently know how to do it. And actually, I would not call myself a social media expert because I think I still have so much to learn, because I know there's so much out there. But I think one of the biggest prerequisites for being here is that I'm a part of like the Gen Z social media generation. So I basically kind of like grew up on it. But yeah, all right, next slide. All right, so just to introduce myself formally, I'm Alex. I'm an environmental studies and creative writing major at Macalester College, currently in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm graduating this May, so I'm super excited. And I'm currently working for Freshwater Future as an outreach and communications intern, which means I mainly work on like social media, communications, but most a part of my job is like this, talking about like social media training. Last summer, I worked as a marketing intern at Swell, a lifestyle and water bottle company. I don't know if you're familiar with their water bottles. I have some of my like work here. And then when I'm not a full-time student, I am also a lifestyle and literature content creator. We actually call it Bookstagram because it's books on Instagram. So that's the little community that I'm a part of. And I started my page when I was in high school, and I've just kind of stuck with it even now. But most importantly, I like to call myself a creative and digital storyteller, which is going to be important in this presentation. And by the end of this presentation, I want everyone here to be a, digital storyteller. Next slide. All right, so some goals of this training. The first one is to familiarize yourself with the platforms. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of the widely available platforms that I think would be helpful for your organization. And then at the end, you can decide which ones you want to like perfect or which ones you want to use in tandem. Second is to make social media fun and personable. So yes, social media is crucial to your organization's mission and awareness, but it also doesn't have to be a chore. So social media can be integrated in your life in ways that make you excited for it, especially when you connect it to your personal life and your organization's mission. The third one is to learn a skill that is widely applicable. So I knew as soon as like I was able to put like social media on my resume and whatever, that a lot of companies would kind of be looking at that. So social media and digital fluency is becoming more and more relevant as like businesses and orgs rely on the presence of social media to connect with the younger generation. And then lastly, like I mentioned before, is to become a digital storyteller. In the end, we all have stories to tell, and I feel like that's especially important as leaders in like the environment, and with organizations. So finding a comfort in using social media and its many features to tell your stories is a really useful skill. And yeah, it gets to be a fun way to like share your story. Next slide. Okay, so today in this training, we will mainly focus on this idea of social media presence, which is essentially just having a digital footprint that is traceable through many platforms. And we will mainly be talking about how to create one and how to manage it. So social media is so interesting. I think because I'm just a very research-oriented person that I love like learning more about this, which is why I feel like I have a lot to share. But there are so many aspects of social media we can go into, like literally like engagement, like how to create a post, how to edit a post, all that good stuff. But I think today we're just going to focus on like social media presence and what it means, and sort of to convince you of like the importance of it, but also how fun it could be. All right, next slide. Okay, so now we're going to take a few minutes to go through some of the platforms that are most popular today. And I will also add in a lot of own things that I learned from being on these platforms. Next slide. Okay, so Facebook, probably most familiar with. Facebook is now what the younger generation attributes to the platform that a lot of older, more established institutions use, because a lot of Facebook's content and really features are kind of outdated, which is weird because Instagram has a lot more features that are harder to learn, but I guess that's just what meshes with the younger generation. But the reason why I would consider it mostly an older platform is because it's suited for long form content and media, which basically just means content longer in length, and that don't fit the waning attention spans of Gen Z. So yeah, and we will talk more about long form versus short form content later. But another feature that I wanted to highlight on Facebook, if you don't already use this, is Facebook events. Even I still use this for my college events, for community events, because it allows you to mobilize people like in person and virtually. And it also connects people who are in that area. So really like connecting with community, even if people don't know what your organization and community are about yet. Next slide. Okay, so next we have Instagram. This is definitely what I would consider one of the most popular platforms to date. Instagram relies completely on storytelling through images and videos. So definitely where the digital storytelling comes in. It rewards consistency and creativity. If you've probably been hearing around, people are most frustrated by the Instagram algorithm. I don't know if you see memes about that. But this Instagram is definitely more suited best for short form content, although a lot of people would argue that it's getting more and more long form because people are writing longer captions, people are spending more time working on longer videos. But it includes so many features, like definitely more than Facebook, that have a higher bit of learning curve, but I think that are useful for your organization, such as reels, stories, guides. Not a lot of people know you can put guides on Instagram and interact with your community that way. And then a new thing that they just put in called joint partnered posts, where you can basically post alongside another organization and it'll show up on both of your profiles. So it really helps grow your audience, but also show like which organizations you're established with and who you're connected to. Next slide. Okay, Twitter next. Twitter has definitely grown in popularity in the last decade. I actually just deleted my Twitter account. I'm sorry, I can't handle it anymore. It's definitely very fast paced. I feel like sometimes when I'm on Twitter, hours will go by and I'll be like, oh, like the sun went down. Twitter definitely rewards consistency and conciseness and to the point messaging, since you're supposed to fit something in like, I believe it's like 140 characters. I don't know if they changed that. I wrote hashtags are actually useful because I feel like when we talk about hashtags, we're like, what is really the use of hashtags? I don't know either. All I know is that Twitter really puts an emphasis on hashtags, especially because you have trending hashtags, which you can't really see on other platforms easily. And then Twitter has long been known to be super informal, where people find it actually really easy to reach out to like their influencers, to celebrities, to their like house representatives or whatever. So it's definitely used for connecting and networking. Next slide. All right, TikTok. Definitely one of the newest social media platforms that popped up in like, honestly, the last 3 to 5 years. I myself am very intrigued by TikTok. I don't use TikTok as much as I should be because I feel like I hear all my friends talking about it, but I'm just like, no. It's definitely most popular among the younger generation and millennials. The thing about TikTok is that it follows such fast-paced trend cycles, more so than other social media platforms. I would say TikTok is a very reactive platform and not a proactive platform, which means that it's very reactive in the sense where you can probably see like what, how people are reacting to things in the news, things in their community, but it has very little call to action. And that has nothing to do with the people on TikTok. It just has to do with the features on TikTok that don't really make it easy for you to go to learn more information on like this event or to donate to a fundraiser and all that. So, and it's definitely suited for short form content since a lot of the videos are really under a minute or in that like 5-minute range. So next slide. And I don't know how many of you guys have LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is really popular, but I wanted to include this because not a lot of people consider LinkedIn as a social media platform, but I think it is definitely social media. It's like social media for like hiring and networking, I think, which is becoming like increasingly more useful, especially during like the pandemic and people virtually, they just need like the job search and everything. And I think it's going to be really big in a few years, basically. But LinkedIn is best for connecting with other organizations and youth who are currently obsessed looking for jobs. I can tell you that because I am one of those people. And it can help build brand awareness and relationships with audience, so they know a little bit more about your company ethos. And we'll talk a little bit more later when I show you examples from each of these platforms about like good storytelling techniques or like examples of storytelling, so you can see what I mean when I mean like LinkedIn is a social media platform and not just a platform like a resume, building platform. So, all right, next slide. Okay, so I wanted to take a minute and kind of like honor what you guys think so far, what platforms your organizations use currently, or what platforms excite you. So you can just like put that in the chat. And I'll, you can tell me why, you don't have to, or which platforms you think you're staying away from. I can definitely start in saying that Instagram is my favorite platform since I am a like writing person. I do like writing a lot, but I also really love photography and, taking, photo shoots and taking photos and videos. So I think Instagram really excites me. Like I said, I think the platform that I'm staying away from, I mean, I deleted Twitter because I felt like Twitter was becoming a little like toxic for me. I think like the kind of basically like school Twitter, but also TikTok, I feel like is too fast paced for me where I can't keep up with the trend cycles and the like, you know, free flow of content. So yeah. And you definitely don't have to share. Or what platform like you want to know more about. I know not a lot of people use LinkedIn as sort of social media for like organization use. I think it's more definitely suited for personal use. All right. I'm just going to share this because it went to the panelists only. You can send the chat to the panelists and attendees. Okay, so I'm going to read some of the responses here, just a few of them. So Mary Alice says, I stay away from LinkedIn, but I love and use them all for personal need to learn more on how to connect our nonprofit. Yes, that's totally valid. Definitely more for personal use. And I definitely want to show you some ways that it could also be leveraged for your organization. Peggy, do you mean TikTok? I think, okay, yeah, I don't use TikTok as I want to educate. Yes, that is totally valid. I do feel like TikTok is, especially with the younger generation, is definitely based on more like excitement factor and like humor. I think it's very humor based, I would say, more so than other apps. And then Lindsay says, I love connecting with other orgs on Insta, so I'm happy to hear about the joint partnered post. Yes, and I can definitely go more into that because that is actually such a useful thing. I've seen a lot of brands using them. And it's just such a useful thing. I'm like, oh, wait, there's this one brand that I see that is connecting with another. So now I can follow that one as well. And then Leslie says, personally, I don't use Twitter or Instagram, but I do use Facebook. I can stay up to date on more than one platform. Yeah, Facebook is definitely a good app. I still use Facebook, so I see the value in it as well. Okay, then last one, Donna says probably Instagram, we use photos. Yes, Instagram photos, I cannot wait to see how that works out. But next slide. All right, so next we're going to go over some quick tips for navigating all of these platforms. And the tips that I'm going to share are definitely applicable to all of them, but can be catered for each individual one. So next slide, please. Okay, I'm very proud of this. I made this like 3Cs principle because I saw that it was informing a lot of my own content, but also this is a lot of what I learned in marketing at Swell. But if you can remember these 3Cs, then you're basically already halfway there. Just make sure to be using them in tandem, not just like separately. So the first C is consistency. So finding a consistent schedule that works for you. Algorithms reward consistency. When I mean the algorithm, I'm definitely more talking about Instagram, TikTok, basically Instagram and TikTok. I feel like the other platforms, they follow a pretty chronological algorithm, but Instagram and TikTok really rewards consistency. They're basically, just imagine a bunch of like tiny little robots, like shuffling through millions of posts and content all day. And if they know your schedule, if they know when you post and they can already predict when you will, it'll be easier to share your post. If you think of it like that, because that's how the algorithm works. I know Instagram just changed back to a chronological algorithm, but I know that you have to like opt out of it, like opt out of the other one. So it's not really productive. I would just say, as a principle, to be consistent in your content. Also for you as well as a person, I think it's just more you're more at ease if you have a schedule of when you're going to post. And that could even be like once a month, like every other week. It just has to be consistent. It doesn't matter how frequent. You don't have to be posting every day. The second one is content, which is obviously the most important thing, but I put it in here because not a lot of people think much about their content. They think just about generating a lot of stuff at a single time and not about actually what they're putting out there. So creating content that you're, first of all, passionate about, because if you channel that passion through your content, it's infectious. Like people are immediately going to pick up on it and they're going to want to talk to you about it. And then it also should be unique and inspire your audience. So make sure to understand what other orgs or other people in the community are posting about and see ways in which you can be unique and which ways you can stand out from that that like overflow of content, the oversaturation of content. And then lastly, call to action, because I think a lot of people don't focus on this enough, is that if you're going to put something out there, and I think especially information that people don't know about, you're sharing this information new, but people as humans, we always want to know like how we can help, what we can do, and call to actions are really good. So call to actions, I mean, if you're sharing information, like tell people which ways they can engage with it, like click the link in the bio to learn more about it, or even to like fundraise, to donate to this page or whatever. Any type of call to action is great to first increase engagement, but also just connect with your audience more. Because if you're just spouting out information all the time, your audience won't really, well, they'll get confused. They won't know how to interact with it or what to do. Next slide. Okay, when people talk about social media, they like to throw around this word engagement, but what does it really mean and how do we increase engagement? So to put it plainly, engagement is the measure of comments, likes, and shares. And I like to think of it as actually the greatest measure of social media is an engaged audience, not just how big your audience is. So you can have like 1 million followers, but have like majority of those people not be engaged. And that is way worse than having a smaller audience. So say like 1,000 followers is so much better, and having them all engage rather than having that 1 million followers. I don't know if that makes sense. But I like to think of engagement as less of quantitative, but more qualitative. So for example, if someone engaged with your organization on social media, would they recommend and share your organization with a friend after? Because that's what engagement is. If they're engaged enough, are they going to recommend it to a friend? Are they going to share it on their own story so that other people could engage with it? And I think of social media like wholly is, I think as soon as we forget the numbers and we don't look too much into like the quantitative analysis of it, like, oh, are we getting like the statistics of it, I think it becomes more fun. It becomes more exciting because numbers can bring people down. And also I think, especially with engagement, like if you're not receiving as much engagement as you want to on a post, it can definitely be a little disheartening. But this is why we have ways to increase engagement. So one of my favorite ways to increase engagement is to ask questions in your captions or posts to invite interaction. So if there is a post, like I said, with very informational posts, or you're posting about something for your organization to a complete stranger and they have no idea what they're looking at, the best way to increase their interaction with the post is to ask a question that people can relate to, that people can answer, to invite that interaction. Another one I really like is run contests and giveaways. Like I said, with the Instagram new joint feature, you can post like giveaways or like contests, like a t-shirt contest or whatever, or a poster design contest. And then you can joint posts with like a partner organization to show how you are affiliated with it. Another one is know when your audience is active. This grows as you grow in social media. So as you post more and as you interact with social media, your app kind of designates when your audience is most active. So as soon as you know that, definitely post when your audience is most active, because then they'll be able to like comment and share more rather than just scrolling and liking. And then another really important one that I have learned through my own experience is listening and responding to your community. I think we all have ideas and cultural moments that we very much relate to. So I definitely think listening and responding to those moments, whether you're sharing something about this cultural event or about this really important news thing, definitely sharing that, because I think a lot of people want to resonate with brands and organizations that have the same values as they do. So a person might not know what you do, but if you like share something that very much aligns with their values, it will make you very popular in their book. So and then lastly, responding to comments and questions. I can't tell you enough how much I sometimes interact with organizations and I like ask a question and then they don't answer my question, or they don't even like it or see it, and it makes me feel bad. It just makes me feel like they don't like want to get to know me better or know their audience better. I would definitely say this is one of the hardest ones to keep track of. It doesn't mean you have to be on your social media all the time. I definitely get caught up on that a lot, but you can definitely spend, like, let's say 30 minutes a day or 30 minutes like a week responding to comments and answering questions. I think that a lot of people in your DMs, ask questions. And then another tip is it is less about how you engage, but how many you engage, but how you engage. Next slide. Okay, so I talked before about long form versus short form content. I wanted to go into this more because these are they're like nicknames for the content. But so long form content is essentially videos longer than a minute or long captions or posts. These are definitely more popular on Facebook. I don't know if you've seen on Facebook, they have like these essays on Facebook. That's definitely more long form content compared to an Instagram post, I would say, that just ask you a question or something. And the benefit of this is that it can fit more information, but drawback is that it may be too long for some audiences. Like I said, attention span of my generation, definitely we are more suited to like the 1 minute videos. And then short form content fits the bill of like reels, Instagram stories, TikTok content, short videos on like Facebook or whatever. And I definitely think tweets fit into this really well because Twitter is very interesting. I think of Twitter as a game. I mean, especially as a creative writer, all I want to do is write. But Twitter is very interesting where you have to like fit your messaging into like 140 characters. And it's very fun to play that like game of like making your writing more concise and to the point so that people don't lose the message in there. And this also includes short Instagram captions, like I said. And a drawback of this is that a lot of information may be lost, but I would think a win is learning how to be more concise in your messaging and really getting to what the core of your messaging is, and then keeping out like a lot of fluff that you don't need that may like lose the attention. And a note is that it's hard to be good at both. So I definitely recommend choosing one that speaks to you. I definitely feel like I'm more suited for short form content. I still want to get into long form content, like I said, as I'm exploring LinkedIn a lot more, because LinkedIn loves long form content. Like people love hearing those hiring stories about how someone got rejected from their first job and ended up working at like Microsoft. So I definitely want to get into that more. So next slide. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about is infographics, because when it comes to environmentalism, environmental justice, social justice, or if you're an organization that has some type of message, infographics have been an increasingly popular way to engage with your audience, as well as invite complete strangers into what your organization covers. And these are especially useful for information that you have to teach people. I think all of us in this room have something that we could teach someone. Like I can make an infographic on social media. And some of the examples here. So some aims of infographics is, yeah, they attract a following, they increase your engagement because you're teaching people information they don't know. So people are more likely to engage with that. One of my favorite parts about infographics is that it just makes knowledge accessible. Like I don't understand this gatekeeping of knowledge, honestly. I think with like scholars and like academics, but I really feel like social media has done a really good job of breaking that down by teaching like everyday people more about like environmental racism or like what World Water Day is or what these really important issues that impact people's daily lives, but they don't know because like I said, that information is very much gate kept behind like scholarly articles that you have to read like 30 pages of before getting to the point. So I think infographics are really useful, especially for organizations that have that information, that have people with that background. And then lastly, it increases credibility as an org, because the more you post these, I feel like the more people go to your organization as kind of like the expert or the person who knows more about this. So I have some examples here. I actually made that 3 ways to celebrate World Water Day one on World Water Day. So I would like you to meet your new best friend, Canva. I don't know if you guys use Canva yet, but Canva is definitely, I think, what a lot of like nonprofit organizations, even non-nonprofit organizations. I know someone who works for Target who uses Canva, and I'm like, what? You use Canva? You're Target? No. But I definitely think we're not all born graphic designers. I'm not a graphic designer, but like Canva just makes it so easy. And I think Canva is interesting because like it's not like cheating. Like Canva is there to guide you through like what interesting graphics look like, but all the content and like creativity is still coming from you. Like it's not just, coming from somewhere. Peggy says, I need to learn Canva. That's a really great point because I am about to teach you Canva. So for this next slide, this is putting me on the spot a little bit. I'm really nervous for this, but bear with me. So I'm going to be doing a step-by-step guide on how to design a post in Canva. So if anyone has a prompt or subject that you would be interested in seeing an infographic about, please let me know in the chat. It could literally be anything, like how strawberries are grown, or like I don't know. Just give me a random prompt, and by doing this, I want to show you how like easy it is to utilize Canva as a tool to like elevate your message or talk about something that you have more knowledge on. Yeah, so anyone can leave anything in the chat, or if we don't have any suggestions, I will come up with a topic myself, but that will be very hard. Yeah. Okay, can I share my screen? Okay, cool. Let me get everything organized. Okay, let me pick my topic first before. Reproductive justice, basement flooding from extreme rains, PFAS. I don't know I'm going to do reproductive justice just because that speaks to me. I've never really done an infographic on reproductive justice. Gwendolyn, do you have any things that we want to be sure to include, like what sort of talking points we want to include? You can just share that in the comments because you're definitely the expert on this. I am driving the content and information through you, but I will demonstrate kind of how the design comes together. Okay, so we're on Canva now. So the first thing you do is when you're on Canva, so we're going to create a design, and I'm just going to strictly do this for Instagram right now because I feel like infographics are definitely more popular on Instagram. But as you sort of navigate social media more, you'll know that it's important to cross-pollinate, cross-post on all social media. So if you post an infographic on Instagram, it's definitely useful to post it on Twitter next, and then post on Facebook if you have a Facebook. And yeah, all those other platforms. Okay, so first we're going to go into, so Canva has a bunch of already established like things, but you can also custom create like a design. So we're going to start out with a simple design here. And the best thing about Canva is they already have templates made for you. So we're just going to use a template for today because like I said, I'm not a graphic designer. Sometimes what I like to do is I actually like to adjust templates if they don't fit the style of the brand that I'm working for or the organization. I feel like definitely an important part of Instagram is your organization or your profile really having a consistent theme, or maybe it's a color that shows up in every post. Maybe it's a sign or signature that shows up, but definitely want to have a consistent theme because a lot of people like looking at pretty pages, and that's just a thing that we've learned to like. But okay, let me see if they have any templates for reproductive justice. They don't, but we can just go on. Maybe I want to look for like a news. Hold on, let me see the chat. Women's rights. Yeah, we can open it up a little to women's rights. So I'm gonna choose like a news kind of template because that's kind of what I'm going for. So let me just find one. I'm not going to be too picky here. Usually I'll spend about like 30 minutes looking through like news, like through templates and choosing which one I like best. But I think the one I'm going to go with today I'm going to go with this one. I don't want to be too choosy. I don't really like this yellow background, so I definitely want to change it to something that I like more. Maybe like a blue. Ooh, I think I changed. Oh, I can't change the background because there's a sign here. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna change the background. Okay, but do we have like a fact about like women's rights or reproductive justice, or what? Sorry, I'm like doing this on the spot. Let me see the chat. Yes, definitely. So we'll open it to women's rights. So maybe a what to know about. So we'll do that. So this will be like an infographic post. So it'll invite. So we'll definitely create more pages. So you want to create pages just by clicking this thing right here, this icon, duplicate page. So it'll have multiple pages so that people can swipe through. But yeah, we'll just do the starting page for now. So what to know about women's rights. How about that? And that way it'll open up conversations so that the subsequent slides can be something about like certain issues concerning women's rights, like reproductive justice and all that. But just as a starting slide, and again, this might not look the best. It's definitely tailored to fit your style, but I just want to show you the possibilities that are available on Canva. So by this starting slide, we're being like, what to know about women's rights. Like this is definitely really something very popular on like with infographics and starting slides. It's like how to blah, 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 like ways to engage with World Water Day or what to know about, So I'm going to add I'm going to make it cute. So if we can go to elements here, we can literally search up anything from Canva. So I'm just going to try to do like find a kind of female figure. I think trying to find one that's interesting. Or we can do microphone, something that is just, I'm struggling a bit, but as you can see, there's so much to kind of look for. So we can even do this, like we can do something about where they're kind of like pointing at the women's rights, the speech bubble right here. I promise I'm a lot better at this. I'm just under a lot of pressure. But we can definitely change the background if we don't like the colors of it. We can choose colors from the kind of, but I kind of like blue and I kind of want to change this to blue too. So you can literally change anything. But we can add a bunch of little things. I don't know if there's anything else we wanted to add to this. Yes. So that's pretty much, I'm gonna leave it here before it gets any worse. But as you can see, we kind of just created like a call out, like people definitely want to know more about women's rights and what issues. I think Gwendolyn put another one like equal pay, housing, water, like a lot of these issues that impact women's rights that people want to know more of. And again, this slide could be like hundreds of pages long just because there's so many issues concerning that, but condensing that information into small things. So like if we wanted to do one presentation about women's rights and equal pay or reproductive justice, much less about fitting them all on one slide, but condensing them into information. So that's pretty much, I'm gonna leave it there. Yeah, you can go back to the presentation. Ooh, okay. All right, and next slide. Okay, so we talked about which platforms to use and how to use them. Now, what can we actually do with this new superpower and what are the implications of actually knowing how to navigate social media? Next slide. Okay, so we talked a lot about storytelling. I'm sorry, I'm gonna throw this term at you so much just because like I said, I'm a creative writing major, but most of my experience with social media, the best experiences I had with social media have come from the storytelling. So the greatest ability of social media is storytelling and its power to drive action and foster community. So storytelling relies on a few things. First, how, when, and why you share your posts. A lot of people don't know that everything on social media, everything that happens is very intentional. Sometimes it may not be, and that's, a choice. It's definitely, I would say, more popular among personal accounts. Like if you're just posting to post to share with your community and your network of people that you know, like what you're up to, that's great as well. But if you're using it from an organization standpoint and from a branding standpoint, everything that you do is very intentional. So just keep that in mind when you are knowing what you're posting and what you're boosting. your words, imageries, and actions. So storytelling relies on how you connect your words to your imageries and also your actions on social media. What posts are you commenting on? What groups are you sharing on your page? Like all these things are important to your story, important to your organization's story. Connecting with your audience. So yes, storytelling is who you're connecting to, how you're connecting to them, and how you're activating them, I think is a huge thing. One of my favorite things is participating in cultural moments. The people that follow you know what you're posting. Like they know what you stand for, they know your group's missions and goals. So don't feel afraid to weigh in on these cultural moments. Like I know when the presidential election was coming up, a lot of like the influencers and the organizations that I follow really took a stand. And that made me care about them more, like knowing where they stood with the election and their thoughts on specific issues. I was very encouraged to engage with them as someone like who was voting for the first time. Really inspired also to connect with them because I share the same values. And then sharing and weighing in on things that are important to both you and your organization. Like I talked about before, this can mean culture moments, social justice movements, news cycles, or whatever. If you're sharing it, your audience knows a little bit more about not only who you are as an organization, but who you are as like human beings and people. Like I think my favorite thing on social media is like empathy, like the best part about social media and for me has been connecting with people who have been more open to talking about like mental health in books. And I've kind of gained that awareness from social media myself to not be so like ignorant or blind to some of the things that happen in the world, but sort of connecting with them and learning more about them. So next slide. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna be sharing some examples of good storytelling because I think we could all use some examples. I mean, these are some examples that I look to every day. I feel like I'm inspired by my peers. It's literally just not me in a vacuum posting stuff and thinking of stuff, which is what I do. I do strategize a lot, but a lot of that comes from like what I see already existing on social media. So for Facebook, if you don't already know the page Humans of New York, I would highly recommend checking them out because they use some of the most popular storytelling techniques on Facebook with long form content. So if you like long form writing and content, I would definitely check them out. So Humans of New York started with this seed of an idea that New Yorkers have their own stories to tell. And so they strike this perfect balance between using their platform to boost these stories of like common New Yorkers who like you'd see on the street every day, but they have like amazing and fascinating stories. So it's not only well written, but we can see how the use of images that are used to connect with the words to better tell the story to like a complete stranger. So it's a lot of imagery and it's a lot of words that go along with it. And you can see how many images. There's like 9 images in there, which is I feel like some people would find it a lot, but they know their audience. The Humans of New York audience love the long stories. They love seeing storytelling pictures that show different sequences. The next one is Instagram. I had a hard time choosing an Instagram one because honestly, I almost wanted to put something of my own on there, but I definitely thought it'd be useful to show something from like an environmental perspective. So I'm using this from a place I used to work at called Moat Marine Laboratory because I honestly think they're doing so well with Instagram. I am so engaged with their content. I can see how engaged people are, and working for them in the past and seeing their things internally and how they treat social media, I definitely want to recommend this. So what they often do is they have like staff take over their Instagram, which I would highly recommend if you're in an organization for your audience to get to kind of know the people who work at your organization better. So the staff take over and they share their passion with their job, with the world. I especially like this post because it invites me to read the caption because I kind of like want to know where the sea turtle is going and like what she's doing with the sea turtle. Next slide. All right, we talked about Twitter. I wanted to show this example because Twitter is notorious for launching campaigns and challenges among the like art community. I don't know if you remember World Water Day on March 22nd, but there was actually a hashtag on Twitter trending for that, and it helped boost posts from that entire day. So Twitter is not only a good place to share information, but it's a great place to share stories. As you can see in this post right here, how this user is leveraging this healthy at home hashtag, which was like a campaign, using using it to share their art as well. And you can see how many likes, shares, and comments that got. But I would definitely say if you're interested in exploring more of hashtags, to leverage that on Twitter, because Twitter definitely utilizes those. And especially on cultural moments or holidays or national days. I think there was a trending hashtag on National Pizza Day, and people were just posting pictures of their pizza, and I was like, this is really going off. And then LinkedIn. So a lot of the stories on LinkedIn are about the trials and tribulations of hiring and of that process. And I wanted to share this one because it's very LinkedIn-esque, where someone shares an inspiring story, but always with a message of hope in the end. So this is definitely one more geared towards hiring. It's not like an environmental organization or an organization talking about their ethos. But I see a lot of organizations talking about things involving DEI in the workplace and social justice issues that their own organization is working to help and aid in, that are super important to LinkedIn. And they also, again, the LinkedIn way is leaving a message of hope at the end to inspire people. And as you can see, LinkedIn is very useful in hashtags as well, because it's very specific. Next slide. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to leave you with the do's and don'ts of social media. So I feel like some of these tips I've talked about, but I'll just go into them a little bit more. So next slide. All right, starting with the do's, share the BTS. And what I mean by that is a lot of I want to see what organizations are doing behind the scenes. I don't want to just see what information obviously they have to offer us, but I love community, and I love organizations that take it very personally and are very personable with their social media. So definitely share behind the scenes. If you have a little work retreat, you can post on Instagram and take a photo of the team and be like, we're at our work retreat to better understand issues revolving freshwater, or whatever that may be. Engage with your network in any way you can. Like I talked about engaging not only with other organizations that exist on the platform, but also the audience that you are trying to interact with. I think a lot of what people can do is organizations can interact with college students and universities, because I think that's definitely where their audience is. I think especially for nonprofits, since a lot of liberal arts students and students who are very interested in social justice issues and environmental justice are super interested in engaging with these nonprofits who are on the ground doing the work. Try new things, have fun. Like I said, I hope after this presentation, you are just so inspired to get out there and take photos of the birds in your window and relate it somehow to your organization. So have fun with it. I honestly started by having fun with it, and I think that's what helped me sustain such a long lifetime on social media, honestly, because I've been on it for I think 6 years very seriously, just because I've had fun with it. It's not really a job. Give credit and think before tagging. If you're tagging, make sure to think about why you're tagging them. Are you tagging them for views? If so, then you should probably think of not tagging them. But if you're tagging them because you actually really are inspired by their work and want them to notice you as an organization, definitely think about tagging them, because then you could create a connection there. Also important is to give credit. Please give credit to if you're sharing a post from another organization, cross-post across all existing platforms with alterations, of course. Like I said, because they take long form and short form content differently, definitely alter those. So if you're posting something from Facebook that's a little bit longer, think about condensing it a little bit for Instagram and Twitter. Reply to comments. Please reply to comments with questions from very confused undergraduate students who just want to know more. Share stories and posts that resonate with your organization. Definitely do that. I also do that on my personal account because I do have quite a large audience, and I know that they are watching what I weigh in on. And I've had messages where when I've shared things, people are like, it's really inspiring to see you as just a random person posting about this with a pretty big audience, because now it's getting to a lot of other people. And I love hearing those messages. And then set a content schedule if needed. I definitely do this on just sheets or on my calendar, reminder today, post on Instagram, or comment back to things. What not to do. Don't overshare. I guess only if it relates to your organization, but you don't have to share what you ate for breakfast unless it like relates to something that you're going to talk about. Don't excessively use hashtags. Hashtags are very complicated, but I think definitely starting with using them with intent, and not just doing hashtag what I ate for breakfast. And don't post because you have to. Post because you want to. If you're finding that every day you wake up and you're like, oh, I gotta post on social media again, then maybe take a break from social media because you need to explore like a better relationship with it. Don't overuse emojis. I know emojis are like really cute and they're really fun, but like don't overuse them. I would say no more than like 3 emojis, honestly. And don't forget to check your spelling and grammar. And then lastly, do not be inconsistent. So don't post every week and then never post for like a month ever again. Definitely set up a content schedule, like I said, that fits for you. It doesn't have to be every week, but yeah, those are my do's and don'ts of social media. And I definitely have a lot more to share, but that's pretty much it for today. So.
Yay, that was awesome. I learned a lot. I don't know about the rest of you, but as a millennial, I can say that I too had a lot to learn and definitely learned something new. Before we get started, Jill, you want to kick us off into our evaluation?
Thank you. Yes. First, Alex, thank you for that. That was amazing. I know people are going to want to watch this recording again because there was a lot of great information. We really appreciate it. And yes, we would like to do a little quick evaluation of just what your knowledge level was before this conversation and what it is now. So if you would fill out this one of what was your knowledge prior, 1 being no knowledge and 10 being an expert. So if you'll just fill that in, and then we'll ask what your knowledge level is after. And as I've said before, this just helps us understand how we can be better with our work and also helps us explain to funders and others the impact of the work. Alana, are you able to see how many have responded?
4 so far, 5. And this one is, the second question is just below it if you scroll down.
Gotcha.
So
Okay, so once you do the before, then you can scroll down to the bottom and do the after, with 1 being no knowledge and 10 being an expert.
We have,
And then
oh, sorry.
once we're finished with that, I think we can take a few questions. We did have some really great questions as well.
Yeah, I can start addressing them actually.
Perfect.
All right. I think I don't know the order, but I think I'll just start with the Q&A really fast and then I'll try to get to some in the chat. So Mary Alice Adams asked, oh, wait. Okay, so please say that again about what changed with Instagram. So Instagram recently, so actually a few years ago, they changed their algorithm from being chronological to, no one even knows what they changed it to, but it wasn't chronological. And that is very common. Chronological is very common. You see it on Facebook. It's definitely on Twitter and with LinkedIn, but Instagram changed that and there was a huge uproar with people. So they recently changed it back, but you have to opt out of it. So I definitely, I can't show you because I can't share my Instagram screen. It's on my phone. But if you just look up like how to get chronological feed on Instagram again, like I said, it's super sketchy because they make you opt out of it. They didn't make it like publicly available. So a lot of people don't know that. But yeah, that's essentially what changed with Instagram. And chronological algorithm makes it easier to find people. The way that they were doing it was based on connections and like how popular you are. You obviously see the people who have most followers and who you interact with the most right now. So how do you find when viewers are active on Facebook and Instagram? That's a good question. I would definitely love to touch more on that in another like session or whatever. Insights are very tricky. I think like baseline insights, there are so many ways to look at insights on the app, but a lot of people actually use outside apps for that. So like Sprout Social, Later, there's so many, but like you can go on Google and like type up apps or websites for looking up insights. You can also do it on the app itself for Instagram. I don't know about Facebook, but Instagram, you could do it on the app itself. And I'm so sorry I can't show you here because I just can't share my phone screen. Actually, maybe I can. I don't know if I can. Okay, so I'm going to go here. But if you go here and you go to, it actually has a thing called Insights. So if you click that button right here, you can see, let me see, followers, and you can see when they're most active. So you can see this time slot right here where you can see when they'll be most active. So sorry if that was not a good show, but we can definitely talk about it after. What are some good Instagram accounts to follow to see expertise? Ooh, that's a good question. I did not prepare for this. Oh God. I would definitely just check out. So another one I would check out was Humans of New York. I would compare their Instagram with their Facebook. I think it's so important to see how these very established accounts or brands or organizations and how they're actually pulling it off on different platforms. Because it's interesting. You see their Facebook is like word vomit of like this entire story, this essay. People love that. But the Instagram is very different. In terms of like, I would follow Water First NGO on Instagram. I really like what they're doing on Instagram, and I've recently just here, let me put it in the Water First NGO. They work with Indigenous communities in Canada to address like water issues, education, and training. But I was like on their Instagram for like 30 minutes the other day because I was reading all of their fascinating stories, and they have guides on there too. So definitely check that out. Okay. Is the telephone a social media? Yes, honestly, I think a lot of, and I've definitely seen this more common in organizations that find it really useful to, and I think a lot of youths are getting into this too, in terms of like cold calling, and cold emailing a lot of organizations. I mean, that's getting really popular, honestly. We were just talking about it in my seminar class. But yeah, cold calling and cold emailing, it's definitely a really strong way to connect with people. I just think it's hard to take that first step. Do you know what I mean? So like, especially with the telephone, a lot of younger people, like they're very hesitant, I guess you would say, to cold call or cold email. But telephone is definitely a social media. I mean, any platform that you could use to network and connect with people is a form of social media, which is why we could talk. I think someone mentioned Clubhouse, which is very impressive. I love Clubhouse. But sorry, let me get to some questions in the chat. I don't know if I missed some, but I think someone just asked. Yeah, so my feedback on Clubhouse is such a great informal way to sort of like Zoom webinars, but Zoom webinars are very formal and they're not very inviting to people who just like have some free time on a Friday night and they see a Clubhouse on how to like, engage on social media. But I would say Clubhouse is definitely not as popular as the platforms that I talked about today. It's definitely a sort of thing where you have to be on Instagram and be like, hey, there's a Clubhouse chat happening, so go to Clubhouse, but you have to say it on Instagram and Facebook and whatever, because it's harder, I think, to post on Clubhouse and to get that huge audience, especially when you're talking about like completely random people, unless it's a super clickbaity topic, like how to make $10,000 in an hour, and then people will be in that Clubhouse because Clubhouse is a great way to gather those people in like a panel sort of way and have them like talk. I think there's like a different aspect when you hear people talking with their voice rather than just behind a screen. So yeah, I love Clubhouse. I definitely do.
Well, Alex, I see we're at the top of the hour. That was amazing. Thank you again. Thanks to Alexis and Alana for pulling the tech together for us and making introductions, and to the whole team for making this work. And all our participants, thank you for your time, your great questions and thoughts. And if there are things you would like to see more of in a future session, let us know that, and we'll see if we can make it work. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. And again, thanks, Alex, for this really, really informative webinar. We really appreciate it.